Happy Friday to everybody. Um, it's going to be a big weekend at the box office. We have Super Mario still cleaning up at the box office. We have Guy Ritchie's The Covenant that's going to be released. And of course, we have the horror film Evil Dead Rises. So that's a lot of good stuff coming out. And then, of course, we're only 2 weeks away, guys. We're only 2 weeks away from Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Unbelievable. So, anyways, we got a lot to get to. So let's just jump right in. So anybody that read the tease or looking at it, there's a lot of Marvel stuff going on, a lot of Disney stuff. So we'll get to some of that in a little bit. But I want to start out with another breaking story. So we're going to start with Disney real quick. Um, you know, so one thing that had been really hurting Disney for a while, and it kind of came out at the same time, was that we had within a 48-hour period, we had um, we had two big stories come out. One of them we'll get to in a couple of minutes, but I want to talk about the first one real quick, and that's Victoria Alonzo. So anybody who's not familiar with Victoria Alonzo, she was she was very high up in the Marvel hierarchy. She answered to Kevin Feige, and what she did was she dealt with post production. So post production, of course, anybody who's not familiar with that, is visual effects. So of course, Disney is in these Marvel movies are very, very, very heavy, especially like Guardians of the Galaxy, which we were just talking about, or any of these other, Captain Marvel, are very heavy on special effects. And when that happens, um, you know, you can tell immediately. So there had been a lot of backlash about the visual effects artists and everything else. Well, anyways, a couple weeks ago, okay, Victoria Alonso actually got let go after about 17 years. And you go, wow, that's a long time. It is a long time. She was with Marvel when this whole MCU started. I mean, she was on the original Iron Man, Guardians, so on. I mean, plenty of other films. She gets let go. It was a Monday. They said, she's done. And everybody's like, what happened? It was a complete shocker to everybody. Well, it came out that she was working on another film. Okay, it was another film that was actually um, nominated for the Academy Awards in the foreign language film, and that was Argentina in 1985. Now, she is from Latin America, so she always wanted to do a story that was about her heritage. That being said, okay, there was a lot, there was a to do about it. Okay, Disney said their thing, and Victoria had said her thing, and she didn't like what ended up happening, so she ended up suing Disney for a lot of money. Anyways, just yesterday, okay, um, Disney settled. And so this comes from Deadline, and it says Disney settles with former Marvel exec Victoria Alonzo over sudden firing. Disney has settled with former Marvel Studios VXF chief Victoria Alonzo after pink slipping her last month. While details between Alonzo and Disney are confidential, there was a multi-million dollar financial compensation we hear. The deal between the parties was reached in the past few days. Victor- Alonzo was represented by Gal Whale, Wink, Howard, and Shapiro LLP in the dispute, which went public on March 24th. The office of Alonzo's attorney, Patrick Glazer, had no comment on the settlement when contacted by Deadline. Disney did not return our request for comment either. Alonzo was abruptly shown the door on March 17th after a 17-year run at Marvel. Her departure came in the wake of being nominated for the International Film Feature Film 1985. Her most recent film at Marvel was Her most recent title at Marvel was President, Physical, and Post Production VXF and Animation Production. She had had a history at the studio of being a consistently outspoken champion of diversity in entertainment. Reports at the time said Alonzo was let go from Disney for working outside the confines of her employment contract, which did not permit her to be involved with nonprofit or non-Disney projects such as Argentina in 1985. Heavyweight litigator, Hollywood litigator Glazer responded to that comment at the time, saying, quote, The idea that Victoria was fired over a handful of press interviews related to a personal passion project about human rights and democracy that was nominated for an Oscar and which she got Disney's blessing to work on is absolutely ridiculous. Victoria, a gay Latino who had the courage to criticize Disney, was silenced. Then she was terminated when she refused something she believed was reprehensible. Disney and Marvel made a really poor decision that will have serious consequences. There is a lot more to this story, and Victoria will be telling it shortly, in one form or another. Disney retorted on March 24th. This was their statement. It's unfortunate that Victoria is sharing a narrative that leaves out several key factors concerning her departure, including an indisputable breach of contract and direct violation of company policy. We will continue to wish her the best for the future and thank her for her numerous contributions to the studio. Alonzo joined Marvel in 2006 as chief of visual effects and post production, was involved in launch of 2008's Iron Man as a co producer, counting additional co credits on Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America the First Avenger, before being elevated to EP on Avengers. And then she served as an EP on movies and Disney series, most recently as Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Thor: Love and Thunder, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, in addition to TV fanfare, Loki, Miss Marvel, and the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. Okay, let's talk about this. Um, so I I believe that this is done for a couple of reasons. Okay. Now, by the way, number one, she was completely right. I'm just going to come out and say that outright. She was completely right in the situation. Disney was wrong. That all being said, I think that Disney is doing this for a couple of reasons. Number one, they still have the Jonathan Majors thing, which is we'll get to in a couple of minutes, which is getting worse and worse for Disney. Number two, you have a huge, huge film in Guardians Volume 3 coming out. Okay. And I think that they did not want this to be a distraction. Because don't forget, James Gunn is over at DC now. And the thing is that he did not want to have to be fielding questions about either, what it's like at DC, working at DC, or the Victoria Alonzo, because he did work. They did work in tandem together. Um, it was the right thing to do for Disney to settle. They were completely wrong here, and I feel like she won. So there's a couple questions to be asked here. Number one, what happens now, right? Because we are in a point, okay, we're just started a brand new phase in Ant-Man, okay? Whether you liked it or didn't like it, that's completely, subjective. That being said, we don't have that post filled. So how is Disney going to go about doing this? Okay, are they going to hire somebody in the interim? Do they have a short list? If they do, who's on the short list? And how fast are they going to get this done? Okay, that's first. Second of all, there's something to be said too about the last four projects, okay, for Disney. They were all front loaded, of course. So, they averaged $156 million, but that wasn't the big thing. It's the visual effects. Now, you have to wonder how are the visual effects, if the visual effects are going to get better, okay? Because people had problems, not only with narratively with Thor: Love and Thunder, but with the visual effects. Or maybe it was Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, or it was Ant-Man. They weren't up to snuff of the earlier MCU films. So how is that going to help or detract? Um, Number three, what happens? So when she was working on Argentina in 1985, and we had these visual effects artists come out and say, well, they're working us, grinding us, doing whatever. Was that a result of that? Okay. Or was that just her having too much on her plate? Because if we go back to the article, okay, she was working on Loki. She was working on Miss Marvel. She was working on Ant-Man and the Quantumania. She was working on all these projects. So was it her taking too much on and then having to crunch? Or was it just she couldn't handle it? The other thing too is the fact that she would have gotten fired because she was working on another project that wasn't Disney related. Now, listen, I understand they have to hire, I mean, they have NDAs or non disclosure agreements. But to tell me that she basically couldn't work on another project that was near and dear to her heart, I find that difficult to believe. Very difficult to believe. And that being said, she fought back and she won. And Disney is now, you know, they have to pay up. And I mean, we can always we'll talk about this in a couple minutes, but don't forget about the Scarlett Johansson case. Okay, um, Bob Chapek basically raked her into the coals, and it was character assassination, and for breach of contract and everything else. And they ended up having to settle with Scarlett Johansson too. So this is, and the final thing I'll say is this: where does she go from here? She's going to take a 6 month, 8 month sabbatical. We all know that. But there's a little project, you know, opening a little opening up thing opening up in DC, and it's the DCU. Plus, she's worked with James Gunn before. I wouldn't be shocked or surprised in 6, 8 months' time if we're hearing about even sooner than that, because she doesn't want to rest on her laurels. Okay, she's going to get a lot of money from Disney. We know that her tax bracket's going to go up, but I wouldn't be shocked if she went over to Warner Brothers. I'm just saying it's a possibility. It's kind of like, I mean, I'm a baseball fan, so put it to you like this. I'm a big Boston Red Sox fan. It's kind of like, a player going from Boston Red Sox to the New York Yankees. It's the dreaded, traitor, type, not traitor, but the dreaded team, or as somebody called it once, the evil empire. But I mean, the point is that she's made her bones at Disney. James Gunn could absolutely help her, get this thing up and running. And they're just starting. Can you imagine in a couple years, in 2025, if you're sitting in the theater and if you see Victoria Alonzo's name come up in the credits? That would be a huge, huge get. So, a lot of questions to be asked. But yeah, I think this was the right thing for Disney to do because they did not want this to basically overshadow Guardians 3, because this is coming out in 2 weeks, like I said, and it's going to make a lot of money. And James Gunn does not want to have to be fielding questions about this. So, because he has worked with her before. So, I would, like I said, don't be shocked in 6 months' time. Maybe the end of the summer. Who knows? Anyways, I think that's a fascinating thing. And good for her. Good for her. She fought back and she won. And that just shows you something. So, anyways, what do you guys think? How much do you think Disney gave her? I mean, obviously we'll never know, but how much, they said quote, multi-million-dollar settlement. So how much do you think they gave Victoria Alonzo? Was it a good amount of money? Do you think she was right? Do you think Disney was right? Leave your thoughts down in the comments and I'll get back to everybody.